Hello and welcome to another episode of Cycling Insights, which is brought to you by Letap Australia and Drops and Hoods. Whether you're a Tour de France fan, love riding with your mates, or want to challenge yourself, we have the event for you. For more information, visit letapaustralia.com or dropsandhoods.com. I'm Matt Keenan, as always, joined by multiple Australian champion and one of the very best in the world, a medalist at World Championships, Amanda Spratt. Spratt, before we get started, we've got to clear something up. Why are you not wearing blue shoes?
I know.
You confused me at Liège, best of
The outrage, believe me. I think, my mum's at the top of the list on the outrage. Outraged people. I'm sorry to the fans. Just trying to mix it up a bit, confuse even maybe some of my competitors as well who won't be able to pick me and my Spanish teammate Anis and Esteban apart. So I promise the blue shoes will come back, but just trying to mix it up at the moment. But yeah, the outrage has been funny. I don't realise how much of a trademark it is until I don't wear them, and then I get on Instagram or Twitter afterwards, and yeah, the outrage is amusing.
I've long stopped looking for you. I only look for your shoes, and I'm glad that your mum is on the same page. We're going to have a bit of a chat about the Spring Classics and your outcomes from the Spring Classics. We spoke about this last time. It looked like the form was pretty good. We'll have a chat about some of the fallout from that, some of the responses on social media to the performances of a few riders. Take a little bit of a look at the Giro d'Italia and what that means to you, given you're not riding it, but your team, BikeExchange, is riding it. And thanks to you, you organised a chat that I had earlier in the week with Matt White. And Spready, I was originally going to actually talk to Whitey about the Giro d'Italia and do a preview. But then I got a message from him in response to organising the time. And he said, it was 11 p.m. in Spain. He said, I just got home. My son said he was sick. He's tested positive to COVID. So I've gone to a hotel room and then I'm going off to Budapest for the start of the Giro. So he's gone from Volta Asturias, son sick, positive test to COVID, into a hotel, and now he's off for another month over at the Giro d'Italia. So I've had a chat to Whitey about the role of a DS. And it's fascinating.
Yeah, I can imagine that would have been a really fascinating conversation. I mean, Matt White, he's someone that I could sit and listen to for hours. He has so many stories and insight. And yeah, his role as a DS, I think, is one of the most motivational people you can come across. I had the pleasure of working with him at the Santos Festival of Cycling in January. He was there DSing alongside Gene Bates, my coach. And yeah, that was just a really fun time. And you can just see the energy that he brings into a room. And you almost, I imagine it would have been hard to fit it into a 10 or 15-minute chat.
Well, that's at the end of the podcast, and you're spot on. I shouldn't have hit the stop recording button, and I thought, I'm occupying a fair bit of his time. He's got stuff to do. He needs to get organised for the Giro. I stopped recording, and we spoke for another 10 or 15
Yeah, I'm
minutes.
not surprised at all.
So the Spring Classics, you're happy with how things went?
Yeah, personally, really happy with how things went. I think, last time we spoke, I'd done maybe the first couple of races and struggled, but the form was getting there. And particularly the last races, I feel like every race was better than the race before it. And sort of I went in with a bit of a different role within the team. Traditionally in the Ardennes Classics, I'd be more of the number one leader, especially in the last couple of years since Annemiek wasn't with the team. This year, I had more of an opportunistic role, so it was more to create or be in that break in sort of the mid-sector, hopefully getting through to the finish or being there for the final. And for me, that was sort of a fun way to race, and realised that I still can read a race pretty well. I initiated that break in Flèche Wallonne and also initiated the break in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. So that was a fun way to race and a painful way to race, but really pleased with pleased with the form.
La Redoute, to get away before La Redoute when Annemiek did her normal thing and did an Annemiek and tried to drop everybody in the race, it was pretty clever to be ahead before that.
Yeah, and I must admit, I was just like, thanking my lucky stars that we got almost to the top before everyone caught us. Otherwise, that would have been really painful. But just really happy to finish in the end. I was 10th in Liège, which matched my result from last year. But to be honest, last year I was disappointed with 10th, and this year 10th I was really, really happy with. So I think sometimes it's also about perspective and where you're coming from. And I was so stoked. I felt like sort of the legs are coming back. I felt sort of more like my normal self with every race. So it was just a really nice way to finish it off.
Yeah, the same result at the same race a year apart can be completely different given the operation that you've been through. I'm glad you're happy with that 10th place finish. I thought it was really impressive. On the topic of being happy with not winning a race, Grace Brown, who I thought put in a brilliant performance, she finished second at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Do we agree that she wasn't the second strongest
I would
there?
agree that Grace was not the second strongest there, but I think one of the smartest riders
How
in the
smart.
race. Yeah. I mean, we saw on La Redoute, she was distanced on La Redoute. She came back with the help of the DM7 pair. I think Liana Lippert and Juliette Leboux, they also had missed it. So came across back to the front group, which I was in thanks to the early break. And then, we picked a moment with a traditional Grace Brown move where everybody's on their knees after a few attacks and Grace just goes down the side. And I went back and looked at the footage, and it's just that perfect moment where everybody's just completely done for a second and Grace just goes and, 10, 20, 30 seconds within a flash. And, I think that's what got her over that final climb, and then she could really play in the finale there.
And that's one of the things I love about the sport, that she gets a brilliant result in second position without being the second strongest there, but she was definitely one of the smartest in the race. And then it was fascinating seeing that podium. Annemiek obviously winning in the middle. She's all smiles. You had Demi Voller in third position, who looked like she was at a wake. She was so disappointed. The expression on her face said, "I'm not happy with third." And then in second position, Grace Brown was, in my opinion, rightly so, all smiles. Somehow she got heavily criticised.
Yeah, and I find that really strange. I think it was wonderful to see Grace so happy with that, and so she should be. I mean, it was an amazing result, and you could see in the footage afterwards how happy she was, how happy the team were as well. And that's something I've really noticed with FDJ, is the way sort of they unite, and they're all there at the podium celebrating that second place with her. What I really liked, though, was a tweet that Grace put out afterwards, and I actually want to read it because I think it's really important in case any of our listeners didn't actually get to read it. And it said this: it said, "Reflecting on my second at LBL, I've had a lot of people comment on or question why I was so happy and smiling. Simply, I'm always happy when I can give my best in a race, no matter what the result is. This would be a devastating job if I was only disappointed when I don't win." And I just think that's such a fantastic message to share, because I think that's right. Like, you're going to not win more races than you're ever going to win. And I think second in a monument or a podium in any race at that level is something that, I think, yes, it's okay to be disappointed sometimes, but I think there's no reason why Grace shouldn't be happy with that second place, and such an important message for everybody.
Well, that's one of the messages I always give to my kids. If you've tried your absolute hardest and you've finished in last position, I'll be really proud of you. If you haven't tried and you've managed to win it, I won't be as proud of you as I will be if you've given absolutely everything and you've finished either 10th or 20th. Or it's about putting that effort and getting the best out of yourself. So as you've alluded to, I think it's a really important message from Grace. And I mean, how many, in your best season, how many races did you win in 1 year?
In my best season, maybe 3 or 4 races, maybe 5 races in 1 year.
So
and if you think,
if
you think I might have, I think 40 to 50 race days around about in a year. Yeah. So if you think how many, I have 5 days where I'm happy and 360 miserable days, then it's, it's not a very happy place to be in. So I think, it's important to focus more on the performance and what you can do and challenging yourself. And, that's why I think it's important never to have purely just a results-driven motivation.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a totally different sport, cycling. Like, marathon running, triathlon are in the same boat. Whereas you play tennis or badminton or football or basketball, you win or you lose. Like, it's there's 2 teams or 2 athletes on the field of play. But in Liège, Bastogne-Liège, there's 148 riders on the start line. So to finish second, be the second best road cyclist in the world on that day, I'll sign up for it right now, Spratt, if you can give me that moment for 24 hours.
Exactly, and I completely agree with your sentiments there.
Spot on. From the men's Liège, Bastogne-Liège, we saw a horrific crash. Before we talk about the crash, I thought on the back of that crash, moments of crisis, you see the best of people and sometimes the worst of people. In that crash, we saw the best of Romain Bardet. He went into that race. I thought he was one of the favourites to potentially even win it because he'd just won the Tour of the Alps in Italy. And he wasn't impacted physically by the crash, but he was caught up behind it. And he saw Julien Alaphilippe in serious trouble down in a ditch. But for Bardet, the race stopped at that moment. He just worried about a friend, a compatriot, and somebody that he races with. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it just shows the human element. I think it's easy sometimes when you're in a race or you're watching a race and you see everyone in the helmet and glasses and they're just, riders, robots, they're hurtling down this hill. But I think in this moment we saw 70 kilometers an hour, a crash, dozens of riders going down, nowhere to go. Obviously Alaphilippe seriously injured. And you just saw the human element there. And in that moment, the bike race didn't matter anymore, like you said. And then you're just thinking of people as people and as humans, and worrying about them. So I think that was something. Of course, the crash was horrific and really not nice at all to see. But I think that was something nice to come out of it, that you see that people are human and caring for each other in that moment.
When there's a big crash like that, what impact does it have on those that are ahead of the crash and aren't physically involved in it, in terms of the atmosphere within the peloton?
Yeah, I've experienced that before, and especially this crash in particular, 70k an hour, it happened quite near to the front. So yeah, a huge crash. I think normally there's just this moment of quiet and everyone worrying, and of course they'll have the radio communication telling them who's out or what the situation's been. So often you'll see the peloton slow down and wait a little bit, knowing that there has been a serious incident. But yeah, there is normally a moment of just, okay, what's happened. I know for me, even if you've just narrowly missed it as well, it's sort of those few moments you take to sort of gather yourself and then get back into the race if you need to, or go back and look out and see where our teammates are.
What about coming back after being involved in a crash like that? Because sometimes there's some benefit, actually. We talk a lot about concussion. I've had a nasty crash once, just in a training crash where a dog ran out in front of me. And I have no memory of it because I was concussed. And that's a blessing for me that I had no memory of it, because I crashed at 80 k's per hour and ended up with 65 stitches in my face. If I had the memories of that, I think it would be really daunting to come back from.
Yeah, I think there's so much shock as well in those moments, and you're right, when you crash at that speed, and sometimes you have so much adrenaline. Like I know many times, you hear of riders or even myself where you've crashed and your immediate reaction is like, get up, get on your bike, keep racing, get back to the peloton, get through the race, with all sorts of skin off everywhere. I mean, you hear of riders finishing races with broken bones. Then you get it, as soon as you cross that finish line, then all of a sudden all the pain comes in, because it's just like that adrenaline in that moment that you just want to get back in the race. And yeah, it's a difficult one as well now, because of course, yeah, it's a bit more worry about concussion, and it's something that's spoken about a lot more. And so it's definitely a good thing. And I think you're seeing that more and more in races where people are being stopped and not allowed to keep riding, because I think it is a worry, some of the future problems that riders may have that continue to race. Or, I mean, I heard a story recently about a rider changing a helmet in a race that had been cracked, which you don't hear of very often these days. I think if you have a cracked helmet, then that's normally a big no that you keep on going. So it isn't, I feel like now there's a little bit more awareness around that, and teams are willing to sort of make that call and say, no, your health is the priority and we're not going to keep racing. So I think that's been a positive change in the last few years.
Oh, that's a really good thing. Somebody who has come back from horrific crashes is your old teammate, Annemiek van Vleuten. So I want to backtrack a little bit to her performance at Flèche Wallonne and then Liège-Bastogne-Liège. I've often said of her, she's got one tactic. Plan A is just to ride from the front, make it as hard as possible, and see if she can drop everybody. And if that doesn't work, plan B is to try and do plan A better. And that's what happened Wednesday at Flèche Wallonne. She rode the last climb, the Mur de Huy, the whole way pretty much from the bottom of the climb, and she got beaten by Marta Cavalli. And then I assume you all knew that she was going to try it again on the Sunday at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And that
definitely. And I think that's the thing with Annemiek, is that I think tactically she doesn't often have a lot of different tactical options, but I think her 5-minute power or plus is what really separates her from other people and what can really make the difference. And she knows that as well. So often we'll look at a course and we'll say, okay, where's the hardest climb? Okay, this is the exact moment Annemiek will attack. And even though we all know that, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, we saw in Flèche that Marta Cavalli was strong enough to sort of sit there, and amazing race from her, really patiently just waiting. In Liège, Annemiek tried it, got away. She had Marlon Russa from the early break. She thought, okay, relax, wait, and then she tried it again on the Rochefoucauld, which was the last climb, and that sort of snapped the elastic and she was able to get away. But I mean, just incredibly impressive. And I think with her as well, I know heading into Liège, I was reading media reports saying, maybe the time of Annemiek is over. Times where she can just ride everyone off the wheel. It doesn't look like she's been able to do that this year. She hadn't had a World Tour victory yet until Liège-Bastogne-Liège, which was a bit unusual for her, well, if you compare to the previous years. So I think she went in there with that bit of extra motivation and probably a little bit more fire in the belly. And I think, you don't want to give Annemiek more fire in the belly. Well, I don't want you to anyway. But she went in there with more.
Leave her alone, please.
Please don't write that again.
Yeah. Well, she did come out with some really good comments about a week or so after Liège, and it was in the context of prize money by comparison to salaries. And I totally agreed with what she had to say in that prize money is secondary for women cycling. The most important thing is raising the minimum salary, which I think she's absolutely spot on, because the prize money is a smaller part of the
Yeah,
pie.
I think that was a really good point. I also read that article and I completely agree. I think, yeah, the prize money is nice, but I think first and foremost, I think the television coverage is the biggest one, because that's what is giving return on investment to sponsors, and the publicity and the promotion of the sponsors and brands that support us. So I think that's a really important one. And then secondary to that, that will then give the teams and sponsors putting more money into the teams and getting that minimum salary across the board as well, and lifting that. And then, the prize money for me, and I think this is what Annemiek alluded to as well, is that that's something that sort of should come after that. So I think, we need those steps beforehand. And we are seeing that it is progressing a lot. And yeah, I think there's some nice examples of races that have had sort of a longer term vision. I know the Flanders Classics, for example, are one that have sort of had a 3-4 year vision and progressing through that. So I think that is something that's more important than going straight to, okay, equal prize money.
Another one of the challenges or the discussions is, like Flanders by comparison to Roubaix. At Flanders, the men and women were on the same day. At Roubaix, they were on separate days. And initially, after the Tour of Flanders, I thought it's a good thing because that they're on the same day, because that increases the audience numbers, the TV viewing, particularly in Europe with the women's race finishing after the men's race. You've already got the big crowds on the side of the road. But then the Paris-Roubaix weekend, it happened to fall on the Easter weekend. It was fantastic because you had that standalone day for the women, and all the conversation was about the women's race, and then a standalone day for the men's race. And I think we need to get to a position where they have the weekend, but it's the women on one day and the men on the other.
Yeah, I must admit, we spoke about this last time, I think, and at this point I was saying that I think that on the same day is good. But I have to agree, after watching that Roubaix weekend, I know I was just excited. I had an entire weekend of cycling, and I got to watch, well, they had a lot more of the women's Paris-Roubaix. I got to watch that. So that was really exciting. So I think I definitely am leaning more towards that option now. And I mean, the Flanders Classics are good because we do race after the men, so you get to see a lot more of the coverage. But I think it was a bit sad, I think, in Flèche Wallonne and in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, in both of those races, we started at 8:30 in the morning. So we were up at 5 in the morning having breakfast, racing at 8:30, and they still only showed the last hour at the most of the race. So you really didn't get to see a lot of it. So for me, that was disappointing, and exactly. And a little bit unnecessary as well. I mean, we were finished on the Murder, I think, an hour and a half before the men went through there for the first time. So I think that's something that either can change, or, as you said, we can aim to have it on the day before or a day after.
Yeah, the TV coverage is crucial. I got to commentate the women's Liège-Bastogne-Liège and then into the men's race. And I think we picked up the coverage about 2 or 3 kilometres before the bottom of the La Redoute. So it was 30 Ks to go. So we missed, I think we just caught, you were already in the breakaway, maybe it was just before you initiated that breakaway. So we missed a key part of the race. Good thing is, Milan-San Remo is going to have a women's race.
Yes, I've just heard that news. So that's very exciting. And I think a lot of excitement in the women's peloton. That was definitely the one big race that everyone was talking about and really wanting. So yeah, really pleased to hear that. And I just think it's going to be an amazingly exciting race. Of course, we won't start in Milan. I've heard rumours of maybe in Genoa, a bit of a shorter edition. We have had Milan-San Remo. It was called Primavera Rosa, but I think maybe 15, 20 years ago. So I've certainly never raced it, and probably no one in the peloton at the moment have raced it. So I think, a lot of buzz and excitement about that.
Yeah, it is real. I'm looking forward to that. But the fact that it doesn't start in Milan, well, Paris-Roubaix for the men or the women doesn't start in Paris either. So it doesn't matter. And it's where it finishes, and it's the history of the name. And I think it's a good addition to the calendar. It really is. We spoke before about coming back from injuries and so on. One guy who is still coming back from injuries, Chris Froome. And linking the conversation in with what Grace Brown said on social media and having her opinion, there's a lot of people with their opinion on Chris Froome and saying that he should retire. I've discussed this with Mitch Docker on the back of Ash Barty announcing her retirement. And people saying, well, if she's retiring at that age, at number one in the world, what's Froome doing continuing? And I thought that the lesson out of Ash Barty's retirement was walk to the beat of your own drum. And if Chris Froome wants to continue, let him continue.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the other thing, we all know how amazing Chris Froome is and the Tour de France winner, all that he's achieved. I think the fact that he's still racing now and recent Tour of Romandy, he's not up there at the level that we've seen, when he's at his best. But I think the fact that he's still racing and he's still progressing in his recovery. And I think in the end, that just shows the passion that he still has for the sport and the want to race. Because I think as a previous Tour de France champion, if you were there only for wanting to get the win and be at the top in every single race, then for sure, I'm sure he would have retired by now. But I think we should all embrace the passion that he still has, and I'm sure the impact that he's having on his teammates as well.
Yeah, I think he's shown a lot of bravery as a guy who's won the Tour 4 times, and he was at the Tour last year, and he was in the Gruppetto. Actually, Mitch Docker said that Chris Froome was really annoying when he was in the Gruppetto because he had no experience in the Gruppetto. He's never been there before, really, in his career. It's been a long time since he was there, and he didn't understand the philosophy of getting to the finish line just inside the cutoff. If you're inside the cutoff with 10 minutes to spare, you've wasted too much energy. If you're in 1 minute to spare...
Oh, gosh, perfect. Yeah, he would have been having everyone yelling at him and throwing daggers at him, I'm sure. I think Gruppetto, not the place for Chris Froome, so it would have been quite well, there you go. You can still learn all the way until the last day of your career, almost, so...
Yeah, there you go. The Giro d'Italia is about to get underway. Not the women's race, but the men's race. How much attention do you pay to it?
I pay a lot of attention to the men's Giro. It's probably my favorite, one of my favorite tours to watch. I must admit, I just like I love Italy. I love the terrain that they're going over, and also from a personal perspective, it's a huge goal for my Team BikeExchange Jayco team with Simon Yates going there as the GC leader. So I know they've been preparing really well for it. So I think I'm also going to be paying a lot of attention to it. I'm really excited to see what the team can do there.
Does your interest level increase if Simon's in the pink jersey with about 4 days to go, by comparison to if Simon's
definitely, out of contention? Yep. The interest will definitely peak at that point. But no, I feel really excited and knowing, sort of already a bit of a nerd looking at the course and seeing what the challenges will be. There's no gravel this year. There's minimal time trialing, a lot of climbing. So I feel like it can suit the team, and I'm really excited to see what they can do.
Do good results from the men's team have an influence on the mood in the women's
Definitely,
team?
Yeah. And I mean, we have a WhatsApp group with all the employees of Green Edge Cycling. So there's over 100 people on that group, and every time that's a big WhatsApp group. But so every time there's a result from the men or the women's team, then people are writing on there, from men's team, women's team, it doesn't matter. People are writing on there and noticing and congratulating, and there's a positive buzz and motivation and atmosphere from that. So for me, when there's a result like that, and of course in the men's Giro as well, if they're getting results, then it sort of gives a buzz to everyone and a motivation. And I really hope the best for them. And we'll be off racing in Spain during the men's Giro, so hopefully we can sort of match a few of their results in Spain and provide motivation both ways would be nice.
What race are
so next up, we've got the Itzulia. The next round of the World Tour is the Itzulia Tour, so Tour of the Basque Country, essentially. A one-day race in Durango, which I think I've done about 15 times. And then the Vuelta Burgos is a 4-day, the next round after that of the World Tour. So sort of a 11-day block of racing in Spain.
Burgos I don't know what it's like to race. I've never raced there, but it is a beautiful
region, amazing. And Basque Country and Burgos, both really beautiful. Nice, hard terrain. So something that I'm personally really looking forward to.
Optimistic?
Yeah, optimistic. I think I've had a nice break after Liège, sort of 5-6 days off, just minimal riding, and now sort of getting back into it. We'll use Spain more as a building block. My bigger goals are coming in July. The Giro is sort of the big goal for me, and the Tour de France. Spain will go there more as Anis and Esteban, my Spanish teammate, Basque teammate, I should say, or she'll kill me. Very important here, Basque, not Spanish. So she's definitely eyeing off these races as sort of key ones for her. So I'll be there, to support her, but I expect to be in pretty good form and take some opportunities as well.
It reminded me of something when I was working on the Volta a España about 10 years ago. One of the guys in the media compound was Basque and super, super proud. And it was about stage 15 or stage 16. And he says to me, there's no Spanish riders have won a stage of the Volta yet. What are you talking about? What about this guy? They're Basque. They're not Spanish. No Spaniard has won a stage of the
Yeah.
Vuelta yet. The pride in that region, I love it. It is fantastic.
No, it's incredible, and to the point where when Anne first joined our team, then we always get the name stickers on the bike and the helmet and everything, and they put a Spanish flag on her name sticker, and she got a little Stanley knife out and cut off the Spanish part of the flag, took it off, and just had her name there until they reprinted everything with the Basque flag. And yeah, the pride is incredible. Even Anna said if she became Spanish national champion, she wouldn't. For her, there's not in wearing the Spanish national champion's jersey, there's not that pride that she would have. So it's quite incredible, and
fascinating.
It's interesting to talk to her because she'll get so passionate about it. And if you try to say she's Spanish, it's a big no-go.
Isn't that one of the best things about cycling that you probably didn't anticipate when you were 14, 15, chasing the dream, what you get to learn about?
Yeah, definitely. Cultures. And that's something that I've really loved about it. I mean, obviously, Anna's Basque, my Basque teammate. I've had a lot of Dutch teammates and just learning the culture there, and even just the way different riders interact. Like, we're an Australian team, and notoriously Australians are a little bit more laid back. If there's a problem, we sort of, take about 7 steps to get down to the problem and discuss it. Whereas, sometimes it's been good to have a Dutch rider in there like Annemiek, or famously, like Loes Groenewijk was our road captain in the first years of Green Edge. And if there was an issue, it was just like straight away, said it, just really direct, had some riders in tears, at the time, because it was just so direct and so not what we're used to. But looking back on it, I'm like, actually, that was really good for us. But
that's one of the things I love about the Dutch culture. There's no beating around the bush. It's
just straight to the point. And I think for us as Australians, it seems harsh, but for them, it's just completely normal. And if you sort of take offence or start crying or, whatever it may be, it's just, they find that strange. Like, why would you find that strange? I'm just saying what's happening, or what the truth is, or anything like that. So I think it can definitely be a culture shock, but I think it's good. It's a good thing actually in a team environment to have a mix of different cultures like that.
Yeah, it is really good. Spratty, thanks for the catch up. I'm going to have a chat now, or everybody's going to have a listen to the chat that I had a few days ago with the head sports director at BikeExchange, Matt White, telling us not so much about the Giro d'Italia, but about his role as a sports director. Spratty, good luck for the rest of the races that are coming up before
Thanks,
I chat
Matt,
to you
and
next.
chat next time.
And here's Matt White. Enjoy. That was Matt White. I hope you enjoyed it. Fascinating insights into his role. And it's good to hear that he's going to have a job at Flight Centre if the cycling thing falls over, because of all the logistics that he does. Cycling Insights is brought to you by Letap Australia and Drops and Hoods. Whether you're a Tour de France fan, love riding with your mates, or want to challenge yourself, we have an event for you. For more information, visit letapaustralia.com or dropsandhoods.com and press subscribe, tell your friends, and get everybody listening to Cycling Insights. Well, Whitey, I sent you the message about 24 hours ago about having a chat with you. And what caught me was the fact that you're still operating under COVID circumstances. You're back in a hotel. So as a DS, the first thing I want to know is how many days a year, roughly, do you spend in a hotel?
I would think around about 160, 170.
That's a lot of days in a hotel.
Yeah. I still like it. I still don't mind staying at a hotel. But the situation you're talking about last night is, so I got home from a race last night from Vuelta Asturias, and my 12-year-old son had been a little bit tired, more tired than usual over the weekend, and so I was getting in at 10:30 at night, and just out of precaution, because I'm going to the Giro in 48 hours, I said, I'll stay awake and I'll do a COVID test on you. So came home, did a test on him, walked straight in the door, straight up to the kitchen, did a rapid test on him, came downstairs, started to unpack my bag, walked back upstairs, checked the result, he's positive. So walked straight out the door, jumped in the car, drove to a hotel. So I'm staying at a hotel 4K from my house.
I bet your wife and the rest of the family, is absolutely delighted. The rest of the family must be absolutely wrapped. More time Dad's away.
So I already away for a week. Now I'm away for another month. So this is part of the gig, mate. And I'm glad I did it, because if he's not actually sick, like really, really minor symptoms. Like, he's got allergies at the moment. It's spring. And I wouldn't have tested him otherwise, really. So it could have been, I could have got COVID. And I said, we're going off to a very important race in the next 48 hours. And we're still living under the same protocols as we were in 2020.
So some of the challenges this year have been amazing. To see the Israel Premier Tech team not be able to actually start the Tour of Flanders shows me from the outside how difficult managing your roster is. How much more of a challenge has that been?
Yeah, it has been really challenging this year. I think we're not the only ones. I think in the first 2 weeks of February, we had more positives, COVID positives, than we had for the 2 years prior. So at one stage, we had, out of a roster of 29 riders, we had 13 or 14 positives.
Wow,
So
that's amazing.
And so trying to manage weekly rosters, and February, March, April is a very busy period of the year for us, and a lot of teams we know were hit very, very hard in those early races. I don't know why, but things have settled down a lot now as far as the positives inside the team. But I know it's a big worry going to the Giro, because here in Europe, as it is in Australia, a lot of the rules are now changed. So you don't have to wear a mask in most countries in Europe now. Yet there's more positives here in Europe than there has been at any time in the whole pandemic. So we're going to Hungary in 48 hours, and no one's wearing a mask in Hungary. Yet we've got to pass 3 COVID tests to stay in the race. So we've got to do one on arrival on Wednesday, and then both rest days we're doing COVID tests.
So there's a lot of stuff that's out of your control.
There is, there's the racing's one part that we've got a certain degree of control on, but even if someone's triple vaccinated, had COVID in the last 2 months, but test positive, they have to go home. So I don't agree with the decision. I think now at this state of the pandemic, the people who are making the decision should be the medical teams, not the UCI. And at the end of the day, you can't push through COVID. If someone's sick, they're going to be ill. They're not going to be able to race. But if someone has no symptoms and they're triple vaccinated, or they've had COVID 2 months ago, we've spent a lot of time, and teams have spent a lot of money investing in these big races. And imagine if the leader of the Giro gets 5 days to go, test positive on a PCR, and is not sick.
Don't mention it. Do not mention it.
Yep.
So logistically, the work as a sports director, we get to see the backstage passes, and Whitey getting excited, or Steve-O in the past yelling at Esteban to go. That's the glamorous stuff that we get to see. What's your normal day look like when you're not at a race?
Not at a race. For me, obviously, we have, as a team, in the men's team alone, we have, I think, 240 days of competition throughout the year.
Wow.
So at various times we have triple programs throughout the world, sometimes on 3 different continents. And my responsibility is the responsibility of the roster and the sporting roster, where guys are going. And since COVID started, that has been a lot more challenging than in the past. Then I'm in contact with my other sports directors, our high performance staff, our coaching staff on a weekly basis, and the athletes themselves. And we've got certain targets that we're chasing in the team. That has had to change, as many teams have had to adapt over the last 2 years with their roster. We go into a season at the end of the year, November, and the guys walk away from their end of season camps with a clear idea of where they're peaking and where they're targeting. But that all has gone out the window, really, because we've had to have so many changes in the last 4 months, 5 months, that very few guys have actually run the programs that they had planned to ride.
So if you had to break it up in a percentage across the average season of tactical decisions or setting strategy within a race versus managing people and human resources, what would the percentage breakup be?
50-50, I think. 50-50. We also, as a team, we don't have a logistics person ahead of logistics. So another responsibility for the races that I'm going to, we have to book all the flights.
You book all the riders' flights?
Correct. So I've got a job at Flight Centre if I ever give up here. No, we're responsible for all the logistics, from getting to the race, on the race, and getting home. That's part of our job as well. And look, sometimes it can be a little bit taxing, but on the other hand, we're responsible for everything on the road. So if you booked it, you planned it, then you're on top of it. Whereas if someone else in an office, a secretary, is doing it, they're booking the flights, well, then you've got to pay attention with they're booking the right ones. Is that working well with logistics of pickups? All those things. And we've been here. I've been in Europe now for 30 years, and on the world tour level for a long time. We know these races inside out. We know which airports to use. We know the logistics, the fastest way there, the best way to do things. So even though it is a bit draining at times, it's actually more efficient because you're on top of things and you're responsible for things.
Yeah, I know you love your NRL, and I reckon you probably get a little anxious when you're watching your team play in NRL. I reckon the next level of anxiety in watching sport is watching your kids play. Where do you sit when you're watching your team race in terms of that anxiety level?
Probably similar across the three. Actually, you're you are in a little bit more control over this environment. I have no control when I see the Sharks play, when I hear the Sharks on the radio. And my kids are into a lot of different sports, and I love going and watching my kids in sport. And it's great to see them racing and being competitive. And then also, obviously, here, I think I've mellowed out a fair bit over the last 10 years. I think I can be pretty intense at times, and I've had to adapt as well. Some guys like that, some guys need that, but other guys, a 3-week tour is about being consistent. And some guys, you've got to bring a bit of pressure, you've got to bring a bit of intensity to the group, but it's also got to be sustainable over the 3 weeks. So it's something that I have learned, that how I've got to act around the guys as well. That different riders, different leaders need different forms of motivation and leadership.
You can't do this, but for when I'm watching my kids play sport, I've made the decision of sit somewhere where I can't see the scoreboard. So I just watch them play. Hopefully they're having fun, and the result is irrelevant to me. That's all up to them. But I imagine one of the hardest things for you is when you've got a rider that you've got a good relationship with, and they're borderline whether you're going to give them a new contract. That must be really hard around August, September for you to manage that relationship, and you're making a really tough decision about their future.
Yeah, it is. That's harder, and also the other area that's hard, which I've learned to get used to as well, is when guys are preparing for a Giro. We go into the Giro with one of the favourites, and we had 10 guys preparing for the race, and 2 guys miss out. Or a Tour de France, someone's lifelong dream is to ride the Tour de France, and you've always got to have more guys prepare for the Tour than actually go. And it's disappointing for guys. People put a lot of effort into making those teams, and someone's got to miss out. And I'm the lucky one who gets to make those phone calls to tell people that they haven't been selected. But it's if you're honest with people and you're down the line and you treat people the same across the season, most people do appreciate that. This is business, it's sport, but it's also business, and we've got to take the best team for the job, and that also comes with contracts. Some people leave for money, some people leave for a change, and also you've got to make decisions that sometimes you've got to refresh the team. You've got to have new young blood coming through, and at the end of the day, all athletes have an expiry date, and not everyone gets to choose and leave on their terms either.
Yeah, and you've been on both sides of that fence, so you can relate to the athlete that is, this is the end, and it must also be challenging when you've got a rider that is leaving, that they're still with you for another few months, and you need to work with them, and you're asking them to do a job, or you're asking your team riders to help that person win, and they're leaving at the end of the year.
Yeah, look, I think it can be challenging, but again, if it's handled well, if people are upfront about they are leaving up front, then at the end of the day, you're still getting paid by this organisation. You still whether that person's leaving or staying, you still want to get results. It's a result-driven game, sure. And we ride for whoever the best person is, whether that person's on a 5-year contract or that person's leaving in a couple of months' time.
Well, the best person is obviously Simon Yates. Let's talk about the immediate future, the Giro. You're heading off to Hungary. He is one of the favourites. Can he win? Obviously, you're going to say yes, but what needs to happen for him to win?
I think whenever you go into a Grand Tour, you sort of, you need a little bit of luck. And part of that luck this year is that we don't catch COVID over the next 3 weeks. That's one, either staff or the riders themselves. The other one is, there's 3,500 kilometres to negotiate without crashes and punctures at inopportune times. The other one is his teammates, but he will definitely be in the mix. He's been there before. He will be very competitive, but it's arriving on a podium in a Grand Tour is a big achievement, and we're going in there as one of the favourites, and we will be aiming to try to win. But what does he need? I think putting all the pieces together for over that 21 days, and everyone does have a bad day, and I think the secret for any Grand Tour riders is managing that bad day, and no one knows when that bad day is going to happen. And no one goes through a Grand Tour, well, maybe Pogačar goes through a Grand Tour without having a bad day. But it's the people who can manage the off days the best are the ones who end up succeeding in Grand Tours.
Who do you see as the main rivals?
Carapaz and Almeida, I think. I think Carapaz
is... okay.
He scares me because he's very unpredictable. He's very unpredictable. You might think that's the way Ineos will approach a stage, and I know that he does. He moves to his own beat of his own drum there a little bit there. And he does make attacks and moves that are not sort of as predictable as others. He's not afraid of the long bomb. He's not afraid of attacking on descents. He's not afraid of attacking early in a stage race, late in a stage race. So he's unpredictable, and he's going to have a very, very strong team around him. And Almeida is obviously one of the up-and-coming GC stars, only age of 23. And who knows how good he's going to be compared to last year. When you get to the age of 30, the age of Carapaz or Simon Yates, there's not too much room for improvement. The level they're at. You know what they're capable of doing. But with a 23-year-old, there can be big improvements from one season to the next. So I see those two as our major favourites. Lander, you mentioned the word Lander around the Giro. He's always going to be there. He hasn't had success now on a podium-wise for 6 or 7 years, I think. But he's in a good place, and he'll be a threat. And they'll have a strong team there as well with Walt Pauls and Pello Bilbao. So I see that those guys as our key favourites.
One of the things that fascinated me recently was Romain Bardet winning the Tour of the Alps. And not just in the context of looking forward to the Giro, but he's a guy who's finished second and third at the Tour. And that's only the second Tour stage race that he's ever won, was the Tour of the Alps. The other one was the Tour de l'Arne in 2013. And I think it's easy to forget how difficult any race is to win at the pro level. And you look at a guy who's been on the podium at the Tour and he's only won 2 stage races. It's extraordinary.
It is. And the way that a normal GC rider rides, it also rules them out a lot of opportunities to win stages because no one lets them go up the road. No one lets them attack in the final because they're always a threat. And once you've done it once, you're always a threat. A good example of that, Matt, is Ryder Hesjedal when he won the Giro d'Italia. Well, now, that's the only stage race he won in his life.
That's a really good point. I forgot about that.
And I'm pretty sure that Carlos Sastre as well. It's the only stage race he ever won in his life was the Tour de France. So
I reckon you're right.
There's 2 guys who have won Grand Tours and didn't win either side of it. So it's not an easy task winning a Grand Tour. And I did forget a little bit about Bardet. He will be one of the favourites for sure. And I think he's up for contract. He's in very good shape going into the race. And with the amount of time trial and kilometres that there isn't, that also favours him. That also does favour him.
Yeah, I think time trialing is obviously his absolute kryptonite. Whitey, it's been fascinating to catch up with you. I love the insights into actually the life of a sports director because we just get to see the backstage pass part of it, the celebrations or the disappointment, but there's a lot that goes into it. You sound well prepared for the Giro, so best of luck.
No, thanks very much. No, it's going to be an exciting month. Thanks very much, Matt.